Welcome to the Flower Essence Podcast, and join us on an exploration of the healing wisdom of flowers.
With combined decades of experience in the study and practice of flower essence therapy, I, Kathleen Aspens, and co-host Rokana Feld guide you to reconnect to nature with these potent vibrational remedies. Welcome, everyone. This week, we're going to be talking about spring. Spring is, for a lot of people, a really favorite season, but it's also very challenging. There's a lot of elements to spring that push a lot of energy through. There's all this growth energy, and all of this energy combines into these forces within us that if we have any blocks or any stuck places, that spring energy can really push up against it. So there's so many pieces about spring that I'm looking forward to talking about. And Ro, I know you have some elements that you want to share about your understandings of spring. So between the two of us, it's going to be a conversation all about spring and flower essences.
Yeah, sounds great. And it's a pretty dry spring here in Northern California in the Northern Hemisphere, so we don't have the rains, and yet hopefully we'll get them. But the sun is out and the birds are singing, and there's a lot of signs of growth happening, which is always exciting after the long winter.
Yeah.
Maybe not so long here in California as it is in other places.
It's really true. We had a really early, very heavy, wet winter, and then it just stopped all of a sudden. I know to the north they're having a lot more rain, and even to the south they're having more rain, but somehow we in Northern California right now are getting a block of sunlight. And one of the plants that I'm watching blooming right now is the cherry plum. The wild growing Prunus cerasifera, which as far as I know was essentially brought by Luther Burbank, was one of the plants that he used as a rootstock for growing plums. So a lot of our old plum orchards that used to be in Sonoma County, the birds took seeds and there's little seedlings of these cherry plums kind of all over the place on hedgerows and by the side of the road. And so I get to look at the cherry plum, which reminds me of Dr. Bach's work, and I kind of say hi to it every springtime.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a few flowering around me as well. And I didn't know that Luther Burbank, who's big here in Sonoma County, for those who don't know, he's, the celebrity horticulturist.
Long past, but still a celebrity.
Still a celebrity. I didn't know he was responsible for that. I've actually just cut down some extra cherry plum trees. They can get a little out of hand.
Yeah, they're very comfortable in this area. I believe they're native to China, as far as I recall, and they were a really efficient and effective rootstock for a lot of the commercial plums. As you know, orchards are often they're asexually propagated and grown on rootstocks so that they have that reliable disease resistance, or just it's a known quantity as far as the rootstock goes. And the cherry plum was used as rootstock.
Well,
we're already getting started on the nerdy stuff.
Yeah, we're just going so nerdy these days, aren't we? I love it.
But let's talk about spring, since we're here to talk about spring.
We're here to talk about spring. So in the Wheel of the Year, neo-pagan Wheel of the Year based on pre-Christian traditions, we start the springtime with February 2nd, which is Imbolc or Brigid's Day or Brigia's Day. That really is about a festival celebrating the passing of the winter and the first signs of spring. It symbolizes a time for purification and spring cleaning in anticipation of the new life for the new year. And towards the middle of the spring, we have the vernal equinox, also known as Ostara, and that will be when light and darkness balance once again. And then light will start to rise in the year. And that typically aligns in symbolism and timing around Easter. And then May Day is basically the end of that season and the beginning of and when summer will start. And that's Beltane, which is all about fertility and the power of life and fullness. So it's interesting to compare some of these different indicators of spring and different philosophies. And Western herbalism is one, that looks at springtime as a time to detox, help support the body's detox processes, the liver, the lymph, and the skin. And there's a lot of excellent spring herbs that are growing right now and that are used in bitters and digestive formulas. And in Ayurveda, it's a similar concept. It's time to lighten up the diet from heavy fats and oils and start having foods that are more clearing and cleansing and detoxifying. Just simple, though, not anything too much for the body. It's all about balance and just eating for the seasons. So, what is the general thought in Chinese medicine, Kathleen, that is about the spring season?
I don't think I can pull up any dietary recommendations like you're talking about, because I was a little bit thinking about that element of Chinese New Year celebrations. That's really considered the beginning of spring. Instead of Western culture celebrates New Year's on December 31st or January 1st. Chinese New Year is all about that, starting that rising springtime energy. So you can look at that New Year celebration as being essentially the beginning of the new growing season, the beginning of the new year. And then the spring equinox becomes mid-spring, really. And so the systems are very aligned because they're more focused on our environment rather than on an external form of calendar. So the Ayurvedic tradition and the Chinese medical tradition is coming at a notion of that we are immersed in the seasons, in the cycles, rather than that an external cycle gets imposed upon us in the form of a calendar. That's the thing that really resonates to me, where you're really paying attention to what's in season around you, what energies are happening around you, and recognizing that your body is responding to those things. Not just your body, but your spirit is also responding to those things as the cycle moves. I like what you're bringing to it too. It's really very interesting because it's very much the recognition of cycles, recognition of movement, constant movement and cycles.
Yeah, I think when we see like the calendar and it says that the beginning of spring is on the equinox, right? Or the the vernal equinox is typically how it shows as the first day of spring in the modern calendar. And that modern calendar never resonated with me the way that it shows that. So once I started seeing how these systems and traditions think about the seasons, it made a lot more sense. And I believe the way that it's shown in the calendar is the astronomical season. And then what we're looking at is the light. I think I like the way that these traditional calendars look at not just the weather, but the light in the sky. And so many plants aren't just responding to weather, like is it raining, is it not raining, but they're responding to the light, how much light is happening in a given day and when that sunrise and sunset is. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And the fun thing is that somebody like me who's perpetually around animals and with animals, and animals are a big part of my life, certainly every horsewoman knows when spring or fall is coming because their horse will start shedding like crazy. You'll see their coats start to change, and it happens with the dogs too, in my experience. And certainly the birds will start changing their feathers, their plumage will start changing out. So all of a sudden you'll start to see, even in house animals, you'll see these little indications of, there's a new season headed our way. So that's kind of a funny little detail that I think is interesting. And it's quite strange that I haven't noticed anything that humans do as far as shedding. But wouldn't that be interesting if we were putting on a new coat for whatever season it is? I guess we have clothes for that. Trying to bring out your spring outfits because your dog is letting you know that spring is on the way.
Yeah, and I always was confused about, well, why is my dog shedding if it's not hot? Like I thought it was about temperature at first. And then I, again, realized it's just so much more innate than that. Just like the plant cycles are so much more innate. I mean, just as an aside, the timing of things like bulbs sprouting out of the earth, it's incredible. Right now the daffodils are coming up when people, and I always kick myself every year because I didn't put my daffodil bulbs in the ground. I've had this bag of daffodils for like 5 years. I'm like, I'm going to get to putting those in the ground. But by the time I think about it, they're already popping up. So it's just amazing how they have these internal clocks that do their thing when the time is right.
Yeah, and it's that energetics that start to rise up out of the earth, or whether you see it as being part of these planetary cycles or other things, it's such a large force that we as modern humans kind of pretend is no longer relevant, and yet it is really relevant to your day-to-day life. It's really relevant to recognize that if, like me, in the last few weeks with this kind of rising spring energy, I'm finding myself really like, I feel like I have so much to do, and I can get really frustrated and even a little crabby. Imagine me getting crabby once in a while. It happens. And finding myself just on edge. And that on some level is that wood liver energy rising, and to recognize, okay, that's just part of the process. And so I'll take some essences for that, like beech and impatiens are really good essences to help you with those sort of irritabilities that arise in the spring. And then I definitely do my acupressure and just try to be mindful of that's the energy right now. And it can, we don't want to blow up on anybody, but just to recognize that it's there and allow it to pass through. So beech is one of the Bach essences, and the shorthand for it is just when you're feeling beachy. It's really good for irritation, irritability, general crabbiness. Also, some people feel like it's interesting for different types of skin eruptions and things like that. But you can kind of just picture it as being heat in the system, that the beech helps to sort of soothe that. So if you're feeling grouchy, beech is good. And then impatiens, which I mentioned earlier, another Bach essence, really good for that rising energy where you start to feel impatient and irritable. And it's just like the world is not going at your pace and things are not working the way you want them to work. Impatience can be a nice ally to help you settle into like, okay, well, this is what's happening. And I can just find a way to relax into it.
Yeah, and I feel that liver rising very intensely this spring. I mean, for me, it manifests this time of year with a lot of probably overthinking. I'm really I've got so many ideas and thought processes happening and projects that I'm starting or in the middle of, and I'm just going kind of full throttle in my brain, and so I'm hitting that more mental overwork burnout that is interestingly a liver symptom. So yeah, I'm really feeling that.
Yeah, right. Your liver is in charge of, the liver is considered the general of the body, and the liver is in charge of making plans, executing plans, visioning plans. And so it's really revved up right now. And it, like you say, it can use a little mediation sometime where it's like, okay, let's all of that, and maybe not all of it like right now. We'll pace out our plans for a little bit.
Yeah, and then looking at what's helping your physical liver. So we're talking about the, energetic liver,
but the capital L liver from Chinese medicine.
Yeah. And then the physical liver also is working harder because it's trying to clear all of this excess accumulation from the winter. So that's why in all these forms of herbalism, there's some sort of spring detox or detoxification assisting herbs that are employed. And I find it interesting that one of the major ones, like dandelion, for example, is also a great flower essence energetic for the spring.
For sure. It's just so cool that like every tradition around the world knew this is the time to take these sort of tonic bitter herbs, to enjoy green things, to start to help move things out of your system after the winter time. But yeah, dandelion, I love dandelion greens, to eat dandelion greens. And I paired them with burdock to make sauteed them. They were wonderful. But the flower essence of dandelion is just that, it is such the symbol of spring to me. I just see it, formerly, living in the city, you can see them popping through cracks in sidewalks. And that energy of, a seed dropping into a crack in a sidewalk and going, fine, I can do this. And it just punches through and just survives no matter what. That is so much that spring energy of that forcefulness. It's grounded. It's really, it throws down a really deep root. So those who try to pull them out of gardens have a fun time with that. But that green, leafy energy that sort of brings up no matter what, pushes through that little crack to grow and then thrive and then turn into a beautiful flower. That is such the symbol of spring. Do you find that you use it for, primarily that tension that arises when you're trying to push?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great topically for muscle tension and right in the back of the neck when you just really feel that kind of constricting tension. It's so excellent. FES has an oil with that.
Dandelion Dynamo, I think they call it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really nice one for putting on the back of the neck. And I do the root herbally in my morning tea. It's like a coffee substitute for me. I basically do that all year long, but I kick it up with burdock root and some other roots in the spring. And that just, helps that detoxification process, which isn't just physical. I mean, we're also talking about to me, a mental detoxification process that's just cleaning out like things that maybe we've let fester over the winter, or, we've been more internal and done a lot of thinking or maybe self-observation or not. Maybe we've vegged out and Netflixed out through the winter. But either way, it's like, let's just kind of get things moving again, move it out of our body and our psyche, clear things out and start fresh. It's time for a fresh start. And I think that dandelion, I love it too when I see it coming up out of the cracks in the sidewalks. It's so joyful, and it's such an indicator of hope on so many levels. On the level too that we have, here's a plant that against all odds, we've talked about before how people will spray Roundup on it or do everything they can to eradicate it, and yet it persists. And it persists. There's no downside to dandelion. I mean, with what it does to the soil, what it does for our bodies, that we can eat all parts of the plant, the root, the leaf, the flower, and then we can have herbs and flower essences and food. So it covers all the bases. I love
and
it.
why we hate it so much? Why?
I don't know why people hate it.
Yeah, it is one of those things that it's that head scratcher. Like, what is the deal against dandelion? It's such a cool plant and so useful and great in every possible way. I'm totally in agreement there. But yeah, it is. I just think that it's such a symbol of that spring energy and like you were saying, that word of movement. That's exactly what the dandelion helps you do. It helps you move these places in you that are stuck, these thoughts and beliefs and habits and things that they're really ready to change, and it's time to get them moving. And the essence version, we're talking about all the different spectrums of herbal medicine, and the essence is that pure energetic, that vibration of the pattern, which is that movement, is the way I see it. And so that concept about clearing and releasing, I would certainly be thinking if you're working on that issue of wanting to keep clearing things out of your energetic, out of your field, using some of the clearing type formulas, such as purification from the Alaskan essences, would be a really good companion for this season to help you release what you're ready to let go of. Using the drops maybe in a nice soak in your tub, I think would be really cool. And then also just taking them as part of your whatever detox regimen you're involved in. And, I tend to lean more towards the gentle detoxing, rather than really extreme forms of detox. I think that you're in alignment with that too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so using an energetic detox, like something like the purification formula, would be a really great addition to that, or just using that instead, especially when you're a sensitive person. Be really careful and kind to your body. Doing extreme anything for a sensitive person is probably not the wisest course. I'm sure you would have something more to say about that, Ro.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because culturally, I think, people think that they need to do extreme cleanses or detoxes. And I've had a lot of people ask me, looking for herbs that, what can they do to detox? And I always say, you know what, your body detoxes. Your body is already detoxing. You don't need an herb to detox, but you can support your detoxification system, like the liver and the kidneys and the lymph. And so that's how I like to approach it herbally. And, we don't have to do everything to the max. I think but
that's how we do things. Sensible moderation is so boring. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, especially if you're sensitive, if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath or somebody who feels things very deeply, then, that also goes to what you're putting in your body physically. And so that's a case to start slow. And, it's always a good idea to start with a low dose of whatever you're doing and work up rather than these very extreme cleanses or herbs that are on the side of very strong detoxifiers. You don't need to start with that.
Yeah. I think to me that's one of the real strengths of flower essences is that they are, safe for everybody to use. Just be sensible about not trying to do too much at once, just like with anything else. But with essences, it's a built-in safety feature of essences that it's really always going to be doing things in a gentle kind of a way. So that purification is a good starting place. Also think about some of the gems for clearing your energy field. I just love black tourmaline gem elixir for clearing. Fluorite is really cool for clearing kind of stuck places and blockages. If you feel like there's a particular chakra that's gotten blocked, using that gem elixir can help to block that or unblock that area or chakra segment, let's say.
Yeah, for me, aquamarine comes to mind because it's just so cooling, emotionally and mentally. And anything that's cooling is going to be helpful for the liver, energy, right? Especially the overworked, kind of overheated, over mental things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there any other clearings that you think about before we kind of move into sort of the visioning segment?
Well, I like to look at some of the, the spring greens that are popping up right around now. Chickweed and cleavers, miner's lettuce even. So chickweed is this is the time of year for it. That's Stellaria, Medea, and it helps clear and repair the etheric field. It helps release old blockages. And I think it provides some spiritual nourishment as well. So that's kind of interesting because it's an edible. You can, if you know how to identify it properly, you can pick it and put it in your salads. And same with miner's lettuce and cleavers. Cleavers is not something that, it's got those
Stickies.
stickies. It's like Velcro, the Velcro plant, but it's herbally an excellent cleanser, lymphatic cleanser. And then flower essence wise, it is also clearing and cleansing, and it moves chi and unsticks kind of old gunk that's in our field. So I think of it, always remember it as how it's unsticking, kind of scrubbing things clean inside our body, both herbally and flower essence wise.
Cool. And these are essences I think that you've worked with yourself and made yourself,
Yes.
rather than ones that because I'm not familiar with these ones as being from, any of the primary companies. So these are essences that you develop relationships with yourself.
Yep. That's
Lovely.
my Floraluma line, which is only available to my clients and in my formulas.
Yeah, cool. That's wonderful. Yeah, there's so much bounty from nature, and there's so many different possibilities, and it's always really lovely to have that one-to-one relationship or that one-to-one relationship extended, that you're getting medicine from somebody who is really connected to the plant. That's always a really great way to go. And I'd like to transition into that next phase of, that we've talked about the detoxing and the releasing and letting things go, and then moving into the opening the way. Like you're talking about how you have so many ideas and so many possibilities, and creating some clarity around what to do next and how to persevere. Ideas can be a dime a dozen. Certainly at some times of years you just feel flooded with ideas, but to be able to be strategic about how you're going to go about them and how you're going to take the energy that you have and turn it into something at the end rather than 80 unfinished projects. That's to me always the real challenge of the where the rubber meets the road of reality. I think about blackberry as being a really helpful essence in that context, and the blackberry has it's a rosacea. It's in the rose family, so it has that heartful quality, but it also has that persevering quality. Like, let's stick with this. Let's keep going with our plans, with our goals, just to kind of keep that energy steady enough to keep maintaining that forward momentum.
I agree. Blackberry is the one that definitely has got the staying power. You can see by the way it grows on our waysides, and no amount of cutting that back either makes it go away. So another plant with that kind of staying power quality is indicated. But dandelion too, I see that also for manifestation, and I see that in the way the plant signature when its flower is done and it has the puffball at the top that you blow and make a wish. I mean, it just takes that wish and puts it out into the field, into the universe, just like as you blow the seeds will go out. And so it really has that sort of intentional quality of whatever you put your desire to, you can make happen.
Yeah, that's such a clear symbolic image. Just the whole plant of dandelion rewards study. It rewards thinking about it because it's got so many facets and angles. And yeah, you're right, that quality of that dispersion of great ideas, or the dispersion of your focus to send it out into the world. It's kind of like pushing publish, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who knows where those seeds are going to land,
Right.
and start to sprout and grow through little concrete cracks. Goodness knows, everywhere possibly. Yeah, larch is another one I think about. The larch has that help for courage, for sticking to it, for trying something a little bit different. It's this energy of spring is not just about executing what we already know how to do, but it's about growing and stretching and expanding a little bit, trying new things. And Larch can be really a great help for when you're not feeling terrifically confident about this new thing that you're trying or the new project you're working on, and you just need a little help from the Larch to help bring you along. I have a golden Larch in my series of Flora of Asia essences that creates a slightly different quality where it helps to balance the ego center and the heart. It works between the solar plexus and the heart chakra, where it helps to, our ego can get ahead of us and to get ahead of our heart. But this essence helps to balance those two and helps you be really aligned in your actions with your heart's and your soul's purpose, let's say.
Yeah, I can see that with Larch. That's a good one to bring up. Have you ever worked with California Bay Laurel?
No, I don't. I know the plant, but I don't have any sort of impression of the essence quality. So please tell me.
Yeah, well, it's blooming. I'm in a forest, and there's a lot of bay laurels around me, and the blooms are amazing right now. It's just filling the trees with these little yellowish flowers. But if you're not familiar with for those who aren't familiar with the California bay laurel, it's a lot like the bay leaves that you might use in cooking, except times 10 in their smell and taste. They're very, very strong, very fiery. And the smell just walking around them where they're growing, it's very strong. It leaves a very strong smell. So I look at that tree as one that's helping find your inner fire, and it's just got that energy of getting things done and having a passion for life, and then also really works in there with your vocation or your business. It's very prolific, and it's also very adaptive because it can grow in these bushes, or you can shape it as a hedge, but it also can grow in these very, very tall, very large trees. And the other thing I find interesting about it is that typically I see it growing out of the base of another tree, the oak tree, for example. And that's a really interesting thing. I've sort of pondered that a lot and sat with that a lot. Actually, I did a flower essence with one that was, I made a flower essence with one that was growing right out of the base of a big oak tree here. And I see that as not necessarily being like parasitic or taking all the resources of the oak. They seem to be in a symbiotic relationship. And what I see it as doing is it's not afraid to tap on its resources. It's not afraid to lean on its support resources. And I see that energy coming through with the flower essence. So here's a flower essence that can help you kind of be bold and make your move and do your thing. But you're not alone. You have resources. And so don't hesitate to tap on those when you need it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That topic of being bold and going out and doing and trying. The essence that comes to mind for me when I think about that is alder. And the Alaskan essence makes an alder, and I have a Japanese species of alder that I work with. But the whole plant signature of an alder tree, if you look at the tree itself, they have that white bark. And the white bark is a natural sunscreen in the same way that birches and aspens also have that whitish bark. So these are trees that can grow out alone. They can grow out first They are able to pioneer areas. So alders oftentimes are growing in riverbeds. So when the floods come through and blast an area clear and nothing's growing there, an alder can take root and grow in that area, or where there's been a landslide or something. They don't require a nursery environment like a lot of hardwood trees need, that support of a forest around them for shade and for just there's a certain amount of wind protection as well as shade and water, the water cycle coming. But an alder can do that on its own. It doesn't have to be around other trees in order to grow and thrive. It has that ability to be a pioneer species because it doesn't need shade, because it has its own shade built in. So that's a long way around talking about alder being a plant that helps, that's an ally to us as an essence, helping us to strike new territory and to do things that we haven't done before or that no one's done before, that you have that courage to try something different, try something new, and to be successful at it.
That's interesting to think about plants as pioneers, that there's some that are, and then some that need others to go first.
Yeah, it's every niche, every personality is in the plant kingdom already. So we can find support for no matter what we're doing. But yeah, alders are very interesting trees to me.
Beautiful.
Were there any ones other ones that you'd like to think about for that topic? I mean, as far as maybe some gems that are worthwhile. I mean, once again, that aquamarine comes to mind for me for that clarity of thought, clarity of mind, so that you can really, take all your plans and take all your ideas and really distill them into, today I'm going to take action on this. That's one that I think of for this topic.
Well, for clarity, when you thinking about the gems, optical calcite, or also known as Iceland spar, is one that I see very, very good for that. Also, diamond and Herkimer diamond, those clear, very those gems that are just there. They have a lot of clarity within them, and that really translates to their essences. So yeah, I when you say that, I think about optical calcite.
Yeah, and I'll just bounce off of that because when you're talking about that, it makes me think of Go Create, which is a really cool formula that the Alaskan essences make, which is that it's an essence designed to help you manifest. It's an essence designed to help you be creative and do new things. And so I think it's a perfect cap on this topic of helping you take this spring energy and do something really beautiful and concrete with it, and helping you to use it to launch whatever project you're doing. Once again, this falls into where we were starting. The energy of the season is something that we can work with or work against. And the energy of spring is all about expressing ourselves, trying new things, working on projects, maybe not working on all of them at exactly the same time, but that's sort of energetic. And so we can be using and harnessing that spring energy in our lives in ways that really are in alignment with the seasons.
Yeah, sounds great. We just need to maintain some balance so we don't overdo it.
Exactly.
Maybe throw some aloe in there for the overworked mental state.
What a great idea. Yes, aloe. I hadn't even thought about it, but you were totally right. That cooling quality of thought. I used the one from the Desert Alchemy, but there's also one from the Flower Essence Society. You familiar with either of those or both of those? Or
I made my own, of course. But also, what's the one? Nasturtium. That's another. That's great for that overworked mental processing.
Yeah. So that's the next step down the road when you've done a little bit too much. when you've moved all the energetics and you're visioning and working and you pushed it a little bit too far, those are some essences to help kind of reel you back into reality land and not burn yourself out before we even get to the spring equinox.
Exactly.
So I think we've done a nice little loop around here. We come back to to the middle, to the qualities of spring. Are there any other little parting thoughts you had? Oh, I wanted to talk about your diagram. You made this really cool graphic of the seasons that I think that everyone should be able to see. So I'll make sure to put a link of it in our show notes. But it's a beautiful graphic that shows the overlaps and the interactions between the seasons from multiple perspectives of world cultures. So I really enjoyed seeing that, and I want to make sure that people know about that.
Great. Yeah, we will make that available.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes also about an article that I wrote for Santere magazine. It's in hiatus at the moment; they're not publishing at the moment, but wonderful online magazine for the Flower Essence Journal. Beautiful long form articles. It's really worth checking out as a magazine. But I have published an article that I wrote for last year's edition on the spring and how flower essences and Chinese medicine theory come together in essences for spring. So I'll be sure to put that in the show notes as well, a link to that article that you can get off my website. So enjoy.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. It goes deep into different facets of working with anger, that liver emotion. It's a good one.
Oh, we'll have to do a whole episode on anger. It's my favorite topic.
We're going to add that to the list.
It goes on the list. The list gets longer with every one that we do, but we'd love to hear from you if you have a favorite topic that you would like to hear us cover on the Flower Essence podcast. We really enjoy interacting with you, and we love hearing your experiences and your responses to what we talk about, because it's really about connecting the community through our roots. Right? We all want to be more connected in community. And the podcast, Ro and I, we love to connect with our far-flung flower essence loving family. So please stay in touch with us. We'd love to continue the conversation, and let us know what you're interested in and what you've enjoyed about podcasts that we've already done. And you can catch us on anywhere you catch podcasts, and also stay in touch on Facebook and Instagram.
See you next time. You've been listening to the Flower Essence Podcast with Urkana Feld and Kathleen Aspens, and we appreciate your interest in connecting with nature on a deeper level. You can find us online at thefloweressencepodcast.com or join us on Facebook and continue the discussion.
This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not physicians and do not diagnose, prescribe, or treat medical conditions. Please consult with your own physician or healthcare practitioner regarding the suggestions and recommendations made by the hosts and guests of the Flower Essence Podcast.